Hello, I'm Sally Ann Ashley. I'm an abstract artist and I love everything about the process of creating art. So much so that I developed a course called Creative Shift that helps artists to navigate the shifts in their work, those uncomfortable moments where you start to feel stuck, but you don't really know why. Hopefully, my course has the answers to that. It allows you to take a really deep dive into the whats and whys behind why you create the work you create. To put the course into context, I've invited some past participants to come and share their experience with me in a short series of videos. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope you find them relatable. And if you have any questions about my course, you're more than welcome to get in touch and ask me a question. You can find me on the links below and also on any of the social media platforms by my full name, Sally Ann Ashley. Okay, thank you. So today I'm chatting with fellow artist Karen Crompton. Karen joined me last year on my course, and I've invited her here today to share a little bit about her experience and how the course impacted her practice, both then while she was on the course and now. So hello, Karen. Thank you for joining me today.
Hello, Sally Ann. Thank you for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
So I wonder, Karen, if you could start by just telling us what your practice looks like today, maybe a little bit about the sort of work you create and how long have you been creating for?
Okay, so my practice is I'm very committed. I'm in the studio mostly, and I'm an abstract artist. And I've been painting 2 years. I retired about 3.5 years ago as a psychotherapist, and after that picked up a paintbrush and have been exploring this creative side of myself for the last 2 years. And part of that is a regular practice in the studio where I'm, getting to know my materials and understand how to move paint, just the practicalities of it really. And at the moment, I'm inspired really by the work that we did together on Creative Shift.
Okay.
So one of the things that I had been struggling with was, what is it that I'm painting about? It wasn't enough for me just to be moving paint around on a canvas. It was like, what is it I'm trying to communicate? And when your course came along, I was interested in it because it wasn't about how to, in the sense of let's have a demonstration of Sally Ann painting. This was much more a deep dive into what motivates, what attracts, what is this about. So that's the area that I'm really exploring now in my current practice, is the personal meaning that my work has to me. So it has really shifted.
Okay.
So
can you just take me back a little bit? So you said you only picked up a brush a couple of years ago when you retired from your therapeutic practice. So what happened in those 2 years? Were you taking art courses? Like, how did you arrive at deciding to take Creative Shift?
Okay, yeah. So I dabbled a bit in my life as a therapist. We sort of would use art materials with clients. I did some in my own therapy, and I'd always sort of turn to creating during big moments in my life. So it had been there as a thread, and retiring really and sort of moving away from a focus on my relationship with others and their personal growth. It was a return to mine. Hence, picking up the paintbrush, wanted to explore this part of myself more deeply. And I did courses. Yeah, I did CVP. I did something with, I hope we can say these are
absolutely.
Lewis Noble. I have a mentor in London, an artist, Nick Malone. So these courses were very much about the principles and the how-to, because, sort of, as I'm sure you know, sort of painting, it's to a whole world of materials and, you know, how to colour mix, all these sorts of things that I didn't really know, and I'd never had any instruction in. So yes, these courses were very much about, you know, how do you paint, really, and think about in terms of how you paint and use the materials. And they were fantastic, but it left me with this void of, but what am I doing? And why am I doing it? And I felt, you know, people asked me that question, I didn't really know how to answer, because I hadn't made the link between other areas of my life and the work itself.
Okay.
So,
interesting.
Yeah, so your course, and you might want to edit this, a bit of a confession.
I can edit, it's fine.
Yeah. I didn't know a huge amount about it beforehand, but I'd seen your work, I'd bought a piece of your work. There's something about you and your authenticity that appealed to me. And it was as much that made me think, oh, I want to find out more.
Okay.
You know, and took a deep dive into it. Just said, yes, I know. I don't need to know much more. I just sort of like the philosophy of this person. So I came into it with a very open mind about what the content could be.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I didn't know that, but thanks. So what was your experience of the course?
Oh, it was wonderful. I think one of the things that really appealed to me was that it was an ability to reflect. Okay. It wasn't about, you know, yes, we got paints out, yes, we did exercises and explorations, but it felt much more of a dive into self. And how does myself connect with what I enjoy in the world and what then I will enjoy in my paintings. And so the sense of reflection through journaling, the group calls, which I'd never experienced in any other course, this sort of live group event, you know, which many people attended, but it wasn't overwhelming, and you managed it really, really well. It always had a focus. But it felt then there was this connection building between other artists as well as my relationship to my art in a much more deeper and meaningful way.
Nice.
So it was as much that ability that you created, the sort of hooks within which you could allow us to drop into what did this mean. And then, you know, our own exploration is how to convey that in paint. So it felt much more meaningful on a personal level than a how to paint course.
It is pretty amazing how we as artists we're all so very different, and like you say, everybody either carried on their studio practice or they didn't, or they just used it as reflection or whatever, but how we experience many of the same things. Like the course was definitely not about the way I paint, not about the way you paint, you know, it was that individual, like you say, that deep dive into the self. And I think on those live calls, and I mean, they were amazing. And we somehow, even though it was a larger group format, I was really taken aback by how open and vulnerable we each were in the group. You know, it was, and obviously some people didn't want to share, and that's absolutely fine. But I think whether you did or not, it was just such a, like, nourishing kind of conversation, wasn't it? Where you're right, we don't really have those conversations. So
no, and I think that's a testimony really to you and your leadership in terms and facilitation in terms of how you were able to hold that and to sort of feedback and to give constructive and meaningful feedback to people. But I think that the sort of talking in that group, so all of us talking about our art and where we were and what we were learning, also I think has really supported me in having a language to know how to talk about the work that I do.
Yeah.
And that's huge, so since our work together, I felt able to write an artist statement, which has been a huge thing for me.
Amazing.
Yes, and I'm much more confident talking to people about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I've been able to make those links now between myself and the work in a much more coherent way. So yes, the group meetings, the fact that they were live and people could, contribute, was very powerful and something that's not available in other courses.
It's good you brought that up, actually, because that's happened each time I've ran the course. Although it's not, it's not necessarily, I don't say it's part of the course about talking about your work, but naturally after spending that many weeks together and all we're doing is analysing our work, talking about our work, where we want our work to be, the processes, the materials, you naturally get used to talking about your work, and it makes you more confident. So that's happened quite a few times. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so did anything shift for you?
Oh, hugely. Hugely. The freedom that I feel to just pursue what I'm interested in, and that becoming much more coherent to me about what it is that I'm interested in. You talked about following nudges, and noticing what we like, so being able to sort of make those connections and have a rationale for something that, before I was struggling to think, what am I thinking about? Now I feel that, that has shifted, and I feel much freer in my work just to pursue what I'm curious about. And
I think sometimes, and I know that this was definitely the thing for me and partly why I created Creative Shift. I think sometimes everything feels quite disparate in our practice, and I call it joining the dots, because we're doing this, but we're thinking that, and then we do this work and that doesn't quite join in with that. And it's kind of like piecing together all of those things, and actually there is such a strong thread. So like you said, it feels more coherent. You can see yourself as the thread then in the work, and I think that for me that just was so reassuring that actually no, I'm all right doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, one of the things that you introduced to is this sense of a bridge, and that we sort of move over the bridge, so that and we're the thread that connects with the one that's walking the bridge. And yes, these different parts that words and line and color and then symbols and imagery, I thought, I don't know how to sort of pull. They were all in sort of like separate places, and now they can be in separate places. They don't all have to be together. But the shift for me has been, actually, it's legitimate for me to include all of those in my work. Maybe not all in one piece, but in some they will be all in one piece. But yeah, I can see that continuity, and the not that you never reach the other side, but there might be another bridge. There's another bridge after this one. So
it's so true.
Continuing process. And the thing that shifted for me is as well is the acceptance of where I am on the bridge. I think I talked on one of our calls about one of the things that I've learned to do is to reframe some of the middle stages or the parts in the work where it's more uncomfortable, or it was called, the ugly phase or the messy middle. And for me, this is, this is just a process of being, that each painting is in the process of becoming, and honouring each stage of it. So, that concept of the bridge has been really helpful, that I'm, and I'll continue on to the next bridge when I feel like I've got through this gap. It will continue to evolve.
I love that. I love your reframing that this painting is becoming, it's such a great mindset shift of that, really forward thinking. And someone so I'm at my studio in Spain at the moment, and one of the other artists here, because I have a space here and there are other artists, and they came into the studio and said, "You're not afraid anymore. I can see it in work." That's incredible.
So it was like, wow,
that's just made me shiver. Gosh.
Yeah. So that was fantastic. And I'll keep losing my little earpod. So that's a big shift.
Okay.
That actually, probably without me being aware of it, I was communicating, my previously my hesitancy. And obviously, other people can recognize that, whereas now they're recognizing a fearlessness and also a coherence to it. That's fabulous.
Do you see that change in your work? Because sometimes it's not easy, like you just said, it's sometimes easier for other people to see something in our work and we don't see it, even because we're so close to it. But can you feel the freedom? Can you see it in your work now?
I can, because I know that I can go absolutely crazy on a canvas, and I mean that by splashing everything down or paper or whatever, and from that jumble maybe something will emerge. So I really am trusting in myself and the process and the conversation that I'm having with the painting.
Okay.
I feel like I'm in a dialogue. One of the things, again, right at the beginning, you asked us to think about words for our work. And I loved that because, it's words, but also what would the words look like, and all of that. But for me, and I think as a past, psychotherapist, words and being in relationship are so important to me.
Yeah.
And now I can see I'm in relationship with my paintings, and we go through stages, and we need to get to know each other, and things go a little bit awry, and we've got to repair it.
Got to have a chat about that.
We've got to have a chat. Okay, maybe I'm being a bit too dogmatic here. I'm trying to impose my will, and you're pushing back. So I've got all this sort of language now to think about how I'm relating to the work. So I'm not frightened by any stage that the painting's at. It's just one part of the process.
Wow, that's a pretty good feeling, isn't it? It's like
it's amazing.
Liberating.
Yeah.
So how many hours a week would you say you committed to it? I'm just thinking if people are considering the course and maybe they work full time, or, you know, how much of a commitment would you say it was for you?
Well, for me, it was obviously, sort of being part of the calls, and following up on the sort of videos that you did. So that's a couple of hours, isn't it,
Mm-hmm.
altogether? Probably longer. And then, I personally, I think it's elastic, the time, in the sense that I think it's determined by how much you as an individual want to give it.
Yeah.
Personally, I gave it at least a few hours a day, but I would say now it's there all the time.
Yeah.
So how do I measure that
Yeah.
in terms of hours? It's there in the studio with me. I journal, so it feels like it's an integral part of my work.
Of your
But
practice.
I think people, sounds, I don't want to be vague, but I think it's up to the individual really, how much exploration do they want to do, and my sense is the more that you can allow yourself, the more you'll get out of it, and that might not be all in one bite. It may be in sort of smaller chunks throughout the week. But I think one of the beauties of your course is that it is very much, you don't have to be in the studio to be doing this.
Yeah.
You can use your camera to take notes of what it is you're noticing, or the colours that you like, or you can spend 10 minutes having a coffee and do a little bit of writing about it. So
I guess it's more the keeping it in your awareness, isn't it? You don't because it's not a paint like me course, there's no like practical technique involved. Out of interest, did you continue your studio practice throughout, or did you stop?
I continued.
You continued, okay.
Yeah. I would say that it had a slightly different feel to it, because from the words that I did at the beginning, then I thought, I want to explore these, and follow them. I did loads and loads of lines, and loads of words, because this was all part of my my reflective words that we chose at the beginning. So it did the sort of shift, and out of those lines then came, various things that I'm sort of working with now. So it has sort of, evolved. So yeah, I continue to do my practice, but it's sort of, as it will filter through. It changed how I was working in the moment, really.
Okay. So throughout the course, I share a range of like tools, and you've already mentioned a few of them. Was there any one in particular that stood out for you, and that you continue to use today? Is there something or a couple you can mention that were quite impactful for you?
I think the noticing what I like, so paying attention to what it is that I'm noticing. So that, for me, that is both what's out in the world and internal.
That was going to be my question to you. Is that both? So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So honouring that, I think, as important and crucial to my process, has been a big shift. The nudges, so the sort of, allowing the curiosity to take flight, really, to follow the line, to do that shape over and over and follow the energy of it and see what emerges. So the nudges was a big thing. The bridge, I think I've mentioned, is just a good way of conceptualizing being in process and being in dialogue. And I guess I would say this being me, but the journaling, the writing about has just added an extra dimension to my work. Both the words that are appearing in my work itself, and sort of my reflections at the beginning and end of the day in the studio. So those have been quite big for me. Yeah, I don't even have to think about them. They're sort of there.
They're there now. Oh, good.
Yeah.
So you've signed up for the course again this year, coming up in April. Can you tell me your reason for that?
I think because it's a bit like, when you sort of learn to drive a car, you sort of pay attention to certain things and not others.
Yes,
it's not fully integrated. And I feel like, I just want to sort of go through the process again in a facilitated way. And I'm sure it will feel different because every time you do something, it's the same and different. Just for a sense of maybe this time, I'm sure, not maybe, there'll be other things that stand out because I'm further along on the bridge. So it's sort of going in with the sense that actually, I didn't hear that first time round.
Yeah,
because I wasn't ready to hear that, or it wasn't where I was. So it feels like doing it again is about diving. With the first one I dove in. Now I want to swim a bit.
Yes, I was just about to say that. Now it feels like you're down there and you can swim a bit more. But I think you're right. It's because when I see courses and I see people doing them like a time and then time again, I used to think, well, surely you get everything the first time and that's it. And then I have been in courses where I've gone back and done it a second time and a third time, because it's not necessarily the content that changes, but you are so much different, so even all the changes you've just mentioned that have happened from September last year, that they're pretty heavy, some of those changes. So it's like you're starting now. That one of the, I guess, the points I always talk about is just start from where you are, start from what you have, and you're so much further along now at that starting point. So that could be really interesting.
And I think I'm smiling too much. When I smile, they pop out of my ear. Isn't that funny? I think they do. When I smile, they sort of like
they just go out.
I think one of the things that was big for me was it was almost felt like this like sense of acceptance, and that I'm not fighting with what I think is wrong, or I'm not doing it right, or other people won't like it. That's really sort of back there on the first step of the bridge. So I think I'm interested in exploring what the course and what you're doing from that place of greater acceptance.
That's perfect.
That would be really interesting to see what can emerge from that place,
Oh, it feels exciting.
Very much.
Okay, so if there's somebody listening to this now and they've seen the course advertised and they're thinking, I'm not sure if it's for me, or whatever worries or concerns they have, what advice would you give somebody, or what would you tell somebody that's saying, I'm thinking about creative shift, I'm interested? What would you say?
I would say if you're ready to give yourself permission to really explore who you are as an artist, dive into this because you will be on a voyage of discovery.
Mm.
And with that, can come a greater sense of clarity, a greater sense of belief and trust. That's possible.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like a gift that you can give to yourself that's about your expansion and trust in your own process and the uniqueness of yourself as an artist, and being able to find ways to really make those links. So I think if you wanting to expand your awareness, your knowledge of yourself, of your work, and see that impact, then creative shift is a fantastic way to do that.
Oh, thank you. Just one of the things there that I want to pick up on. So there's a lot of in the early part of it. I mean, it's a deep dive course anyway, but in the early part, when there's the introspective part, would you? Because some people love doing that and they're really avid journalists, and some people don't want to go to those places. If like, how uncomfortable is it? Or if you're not used to that way of thinking or working, would you say it's really uncomfortable, or would you say it's definitely worth doing? Like, we should try these things? Or because there might be some resistance for some.
I think it's I can understand that, and I guess as a retired psychotherapist, like, I'm used to reflection, but I would always remind people that they have control.
Yeah.
That actually they can decide how deeply, and I don't want this to sound like this you're diving into something that's like really sharp hidden waters or something. It's not. This is about your work and how you want your work to feel and what it means to you. Yeah. And I think then you can take it as far as you want to.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I think holding that is the crucial. We can forget, can't we, when we're on a course that actually we can choose.
Yes.
And we can go as deeply as or not. But alongside that, I would say, one of the things that we talk about in learning is the edge.
Yeah.
And the edge of awareness. And if we want to create change, we need to be hovering around the edge of awareness so that we can push and expand. So some of it is might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but that uncomfortableness is often a sign that change is coming.
Yes.
So, it's like staying at a level that's pushing you a little bit, but don't push yourself into somewhere that you really don't want to go. You're in control.
Yes.
I wouldn't say you have to be frightened of that. It's you go as deep as you want to, or as wide as you want to.
And I hope I make that like super, super, super clear all the time.
You do.
But yeah, you're right. It's like a little bit of our bridge analogy. It's like if we were already where we want to be and we had no obstacles, then we wouldn't even be having these conversations, so there is that point of like pushing against yourself a bit to see, hello, why aren't you, if there's something we were trying to strive for, or you want your work to be a certain way, or you want better understanding, sometimes it does take a little bit of the internal work to find the answers, I guess.
Yeah, but I think you do encourage people going at their own pace, and sort of, I certainly felt I was responsible. I didn't feel that you were suggesting that I do anything, actually. Okay. It was more, these are some of the ways that we can think about things. And I'm sure, there'll be, so, there was, diverse numbers of people and types of people on the course, and they will all have gone into that in their own way based on their own background. I went into it in my way because I'm me.
Yeah.
You certainly, weren't pushing us to do anything. These were all suggestions of ways that you could think about things.
Yeah. And again, this is the way I work as an artist. So that's what I was sharing from like my perspective and my own experience. So
yeah.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I can't wait to see you in April on the course, see how it goes again for you.
I know, I'm so excited. I'm already looking out for my new journal. I like special journals.
Nice.
So so no, it'd be fantastic.
Okay, all right. Thanks for the chat, Karen. Take care.
Thanks, Liliane. Take care.